In the previous video, I introduced our new Spiral game system. Today, I want to talk about some of the tools we're building alongside SGS to help you create characters and build games. Hi, I'm Joe, also known as Arcandio, and this is Joe's Table. One thing I didn't touch on in the first video is the actual status of the Spiral game system, which is best summed up as in flux. Right now, SGS is in an early alpha state. You could use it as it is right now to run a game, but there are some things we'd really like to fix and figure out before we start building big projects with it. And since we really want to work on those big projects, we want to get SGS stable and ready to play as soon as possible. Now, we're also working on several apps to help players and game masters build characters, items, monsters, and entities as fast as possible. Conveniently, that objective overlaps with wanting to test the system as quickly as possible too. Next, let's talk about those apps and what state they're in. This little ecosystem is built using the C# WPF Xamarin technology stack because I know C# the best and I don't want to spend forever trying to make a dozen different boilerplates work in JavaScript. First up is the SGS core library. This part you won't really see because it's the back end of the application that handles the actual game rules. I've extracted it to its own library so that all the other projects will be able to use it. It's also possible the library may eventually be used by other apps that are developed by other users too. It's important that the core library is completely decoupled from the apps themselves so that the changes made to the game rules have as little impact on the apps as possible. Next up is the SGS console, a command line app that implements the core library. Console is the most complete app right now and really the only one that works for any kind of real use at the time of this video. Console allows you to edit and modify entities using an interactive command loop. Most of the rest of this video will go over how to actually use console since most people are not familiar with that kind of application. Next is the Windows desktop app. This app is going to look a lot like a spreadsheet listing the stats of each entity so that you can edit them directly. Once this is complete, it'll be extraordinarily fast to build up a huge database of characters. But right now, desktop is in process, and it's taking time for me to implement all the data bindings and UI widgets, so it's not usable yet. But if nothing else gets done, this alone would be huge. After the Windows desktop version is the Android app. This would at least allow you to edit a single character at a time on your phone and hopefully allow you to browse the entire storage file for entities to look at. While we've got the skeleton of this one running, no real data from the app is built yet, so it's not even close to done. We're learning a lot building the Windows desktop version that will come in handy for the Android version. Next are the Mac OS and iPhone versions, closely mirroring the Windows desktop and Android builds. These aren't really even started yet, but our tech stack should allow us to build these with the same technology as the others. We might not get to these unless there's enough interest in those platforms, though. Now, the really neat trick of all this is that we plan to implement the Google Drive and Dropbox APIs so that users can sync their data between desktops, tablets, and phones. That way you could sit at your dual monitor setup and write up characters, then sync your system to a laptop or tablet to run the game, and allow your players to open their characters on phones. Now, after all that technobabble, I don't want you to think that you need the apps or that you won't be able to build a character without them. The system is a bit math heavy, but it's not that difficult to use with pencil and paper. You just want to have a calculator to count up your XP values. Where the apps really come in is more for the campaign building side, where you want to come up with dozens or hundreds of game entities as fast as possible. The other advantage of using the app instead of paper and pencil is that it's easier to update characters when the rules are updated. Because SGS is rapidly changing, you'll need to update your characters pretty often until the system stabilizes. That's easier to do with the apps because changes will be automatically applied when you update the app. The downside is that you might lose some data if the system changed away from your build, so it's a good idea to back up your storage file or your character stat blocks before updating. Okay, let's get into using the console already. First, download the SGS console from the link in the description or from the SGS website, also in the description. You'll have a zip file containing an executable file, a sample storage JSON file, and a batch file. The storage file contains the entity data. The executable doesn't seem to do anything if you just double click it, but that's because it's expecting command line arguments. The batch file needs the proper command line arguments to execute. If you want to start your own storage from scratch, you can duplicate the batch file and edit its contents to target a different storage file. To start the app, double-click the batch file, not the executable. You should soon see a black command prompt with a green header. Right away, you're already in the interactive loop. Here you can enter commands to edit and view the data in the storage file. The commands are listed on the prompt, but you can always hit enter on a blank line or type help to get a description of all the commands. Some commands allow you to enter the entire command in one line, like add aspect scaly skin. By default, though, each command also helps you by prompting you for each bit of information it needs to complete the command. So instead of the previous command all on one line, you could also type add, hit enter. The app will ask you exactly what you want to add. You then type aspect and hit enter, and the process continues until the app has gotten all the information that it needs to complete the command. Let's go through the most frequent commands together. And don't forget that we have a Discord that you can drop questions in if you want help. List. The list command shows all the entities in the storage file and their XP values. Compare stat. The compare command works like the list command, but you can compare a stat or skill across all entities. Add entity. You can optionally specify a name after this one, but you can also leave it blank for a random name. You'll have to add an entity for every character and item you want to use in the storage file. Show entity name. The SGS console performs most of its actions on the active entity, which is shown on the command prompt. You can change which entity is the active one with show entity name, or just by typing in the name of the entity. Whenever you do the show command, the app automatically copies the markdown stat block of the entity to your clipboard, so you can paste it in Discord, Typora, Obsidian, or wherever. Set stat number. When you have an active entity, you can set any non-generated statistic or skill with the set command. You just enter set, then the name of the stat, then the number you want to set it to. If an entity has a stat or skill that you want to remove, you can also set that stat to -1 to disable it. Enable all. When you create a character, you should do an enable all so that the character displays all of the generated stats like pools and thresholds. You can enable each of them individually, but that takes a lot of extra time. Add. You can use the add command to add aspects, flaws, and equipment to entities. Conversely, you can use the remove command to remove them. Remove often lets you pick from a list instead of typing in the whole name. Save. While console saves backups, it doesn't auto-save the main file, so save often. Dump. The dump command tells the program to write out a plain text markdown file containing the stat blocks of all the entities in storage. This is a good way to back up or share your work with others. Don't forget that you can always just press enter for help or come to us on Discord. Links are down in the doobly-doo. Next, I'm going to walk you through the entire process of making a character from start to finish, just really quick. We're not going to make any of the items, they're already pre-populated, so we'll just skip over that part. It's basically the same process for creating a character as it is for making an item. So this is the folder that you will download, the zip folder. You will double-click the interactivefantasy.bat, which is the batch file, and you will get this command window. I'm going to maximize it and zoom in a ways so that we can kind of see what's going on here. And the first thing I'm going to do is just going to list the entities that are in the game storage file right now. And you'll see that there's a fair few of them already, ranging in experience from cleric and rogue up to dragon and down to the spells and things. So the first thing that I want to do to make a new character is add an entity. So I'm going to type in add entity, and I'm just going to hit enter, and it'll ask me for a name. So I'll just type in Ranger. So now it says I've added an entity, and the active entity is Ranger. So right now, I can show the entity, and he has nothing, right? He doesn't have any stats or any abilities or equipment or anything. So first, let's enable all the generated statistics with enable all. So now if I do a show, you can see that he has, some statistics, but those statistics are all bad because he doesn't have those are generated based on statistics that he also does not have. So first things first, let's give him some stats. So we're going to give him agility. We'll set that to 8, and you'll notice that as we go, it's counting up the bonuses to his XP and showing us the total. So if I were to remove that, it would show a red number. I'm just going to quickly go through all of his stats. Now I'm going to start working on his skills. And skills are done the same way. They'll be looked up by the program and added to the appropriate categories. So I'm just going to start on combat sense. Let's give him dodge, endurance, melee, and small arms. So you'll see that I got an error there because I typed too fast and did not actually type endurance. I typed endurance. So fix my spelling mistake, and now it actually adds. And now I will go ahead and add melee and small arms. And we're using small arms here instead of something like archery, because right now I just have the modern stats instead of the fantasy stats built out. Let's give him some espionage skills. So set acrobatics to 4, set investigate to 4, set stealth to 4, and let's give him arcana. We want to give him some equipment, so we're going to give him a medicine bag with add item medicine bag. We're going to give him a long sword and a longbow. And let's give him leather armor to finish up. So now I can use the show command again, and we will see that he has a good set of statistics. He's got some health. He's got some mind. We're still working on the calculations for these thresholds, so those will probably be changed. He's got some combat skills. He's got some espionage skills, and he's got some equipment. And so now I'm going to save. And what has happened is when I did that show command, it copied this character's stat block to my clipboard. So now if I open Typora, I can just paste in there, and we've got my ranger. And that's all there is to it. All right, we're done with some of the most important commands. If that's all you wanted to see, go ahead and bail here. Next, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the technical side of the application. Right now, the console app doesn't have any kind of automatic updates. We'd really like to do that, but we have to balance app upkeep with the progress on the game itself. So instead, we're going to try to put out builds when major changes happen to the rules or the console app. It's perfectly possible that you'll run into bugs either in the console program or in the game itself if you're testing it, so save often. You can always report bugs in the SGS channel on our Discord server, but if you're interested in helping out more, you can even submit bugs directly to our bug tracker, where you can add repo steps and paste screenshots if you want. There are a lot of challenges to this project, and frankly, it's an enormous undertaking, and we're going to need a lot of help to get it done and ready to go. Among those challenges are things like implementing public APIs for saving and loading, data binding with a complex data model, minimizing the size of the JSON output, and deserializing JSON that may be like out of date or missing elements. If any of those things seem interesting to you as a software developer and you like .NET, WPF, or Xamarin, come hit us up on Discord. We're considering making the app in the core system open source, like a system reference document, but we haven't jumped off that bridge quite yet. So for now, the repository is still private. Well, that was a bit of an introduction and walkthrough for the Spiral Game System console application. I hope that you enjoyed. You can find out more about the system, including how to get a copy for testing, down in the description. I'm game designer Joe Bush. I make tabletop role-playing games you can find on voidspiral.com and fantasy art you can find on arcandio.com. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and all that, and I will see you in the next session.